learn the technique I use to get this effect without forcing it later on in my flower tutorial. So hang about till you see how you get this fabulous effect. To help you draw the flower, draw a large circle and then draw a small circle in the middle of it. Then fill the space in with lots of flattened oval shapes, some on top of others. Then put a border of small oval shapes all the way round the centre of the flower. Prepare some warm yellow and mix up an orange and a red to give you a vibrant coral colour. First thing I'm going to do is paint most of the flower in the yellow, just to give it a bit of a glow from the background. So we just go around all the petals. That's the garden strimmer in the background. It does stop, but And I'm also going to paint the whole centre as well. This will get darkened, but again I'll use the glow of the yellow in the background. So while it's still a little damp, I'm going in with the watery wash of the red and orange that I mixed up. And I'm just putting it at the end, at the tips of the petals, and letting the fact that the wash underneath is still a little bit wet help it blend. Now we're going to go in with a few watery stripes of colour. And we're going to blend them out a little bit. But we want to keep a bit of the stripe element. So we just repeat thick ones and thin ones. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll go into the centre here and we're painting round. This is where I was saying these little ovals that we painted will probably be the trickiest bit. We're painting round them because we want to preserve the yellow that we've already painted on top of them. They're going to stay that pale colour. And as I'm sure you know, I wouldn't be able to paint the yellow on top of this brown. It wouldn't show up. So you can't paint a pale colour on top of a darker colour and have it appear as that colour in watercolour. So now we're going to add a bit of intense red all the way around. So we can go in and out a little bit of these ovals. This area will be darkened anyway. But we're going all the way around the petals and we're going to bleed it out or blend it out. So my paint is quite wet. There's a lot of water here, so I feel like I've got enough time to go all the way around the flower. If the paint was a little drier, I would just do a little bit at a time. So that's me making sure it's all wet so it doesn't dry on me. I'll wash the colour out of my brush and bleed it out. then I will wash the colour out of my brush again to smoothen that. Keep washing the colour out of your brush so that you eventually get a smooth blend. And if you don't want the colour to go too far, try and brush it back in the way. And as you go round, your paintbrush is picking up colour again, so keep washing the colour out of your brush to stop the colour from going too far. Okay, now I feel like I can put a little bit more colour around this side because it's pushing further out at that side. So the paper's still wet, so I can just dab this colour in. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to go into the centre here and try and stay away from the wet paint round there, and I'm just going to darken some of these areas again. So this is burnt umber, so it's quite a dark brown, but what I want to do is leave oval shapes within the middle here as well. And they won't all stay this pale, I will darken some of them, but it's just easy to just make the shapes with the one layer of colour underneath just now, and then we can put a layer of colour on top of some of the area that we want to be even darker. So I'm using the very tip of this brush. It's not a particularly small brush, but it's got a nice point to it, so it allows me to make quite fine lines. So I'll just go in and out of these oval shapes. Once that centre has dried, I'm going to go into the bottom of it here with some darker brown. So it's just a bit of the brown I've already used with a wee bit of Payne's grey added to it. And we'll go in under the top here again as well. So I'm going back in and I'm going to put a few more lines through the petals. And while they're still wet, I will blend one side of them. Or soften one side of them, should I say. And I'm going to go back in and add another layer of this intense colour because the colours do fade when they dry, so I do want the intensity in the centre here. And you can see when I put the wet lines down there, because they were still a little bit wet, and I added the wet paint here, the red has followed down these wet lines of paint that were still a bit wet, and we're left with quite a nice effect. So while this is still wet, I'm also going to go in with a darker colour underneath here. And the colour is bleeding out itself. I'm going to put a little touch of more of a golden colour onto these yellow seeds in the middle. I didn't want them quite as lemony, so I'm just touching in each one of them with more of a goldeny orange colour. So I'm also going to darken around the edges of these petals. And some of these I'll just soften if they appear too sharp. And I am going to put a little bit more intense colour on the very tips of them as well. Sometimes this isn't necessary, or it might not be relevant for the flower that you're doing, but because I'm just painting one flower and it's on a white background, it's just quite nice to do that to help the flower shape look more evident. And again, though, we'll go back round and blend it out a little bit. And if you've blended a few, it's a good idea to wash the colour out of your brush, so you're blending with clean water rather than with the paint colour that you're blending. So I want a little bit of shadows to appear. Behind some of these petals, and a bit of darkness to show that some of the petals are underneath. Now, I think to get the darkness I'm looking for some of them, I'm adding a tiny little bit of Payne's Grey. This one, for example, in here and right in here. And you can pull the darkness out a little bit further for the petals that are underneath. Okay, we need a little bit more of a shadow underneath here to give it some depth, some more depth. So I'm going back in with some more colour. And just give it a bit of a soften. Pull that darkness out into some of the edges of the leaves, of the petals rather, and then just blend it back. If you don't want it to come as far out, blend it by pushing it back the way. I'm just going in to re-emphasize the edges of some of these petals as well. I want to give this a little bit more depth as well down at the bottom there, just round the bottom side of it. And round the edges like that. And I think that will do. So I hope you've enjoyed this little flower that we've painted today, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye bye.